Welcome to this Degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, joined as always on these Fridays by the professor who is still shut out, cut off. Is there some kind of movement we could start? Any kind of lawsuit, any legal action, litigation we could generate to get you back on the books to be able to go ahead and wager, as you were very successfully, on your beloved Australian rules football? Because we know that there is nothing that's going to motivate you to start betting on Major League Baseball.
That is true. I mean, this is just sort of the trials and tribulations of the modern world, where this new app system. If you win three bets in a row, they cut you off. I don't know what's going on. I have personally never been circled, never been cut off from any place before that I am aware of. Maybe that I don't know. Maybe I will find out if I ever travel to Australia that I'm on the blacklist in Australia too. I don't know. I don't know if it's an international thing or just United States. I will have to take a trip to Australia sometime to find out.
All right. I know you took a little look at this, and I thought about it. We talked about it a little bit on the show yesterday with Mike Jones. What kind of, I mean, you were essentially guaranteed money, although there's always the outside chance something catastrophic could have happened to Cooper Flag. But you were saying it was like 100,000 to win $1.
Yeah, I actually looked into it because every once in a while you get into these things where bettors and everybody else will outsmart themselves, and maybe you can find like a huge money line. It's Alabama is playing Tuscaloosa State, and like the money line players will outsmart themselves, and it's like minus 4,000, but yeah, maybe not the worst play of all time. Pick up a few bucks here and there. I looked at Cooper Flag, and the number I saw was minus 100,000 to be the number one pick in the draft. Which again, you have 100 grand to win $1. So you got to bet $1,000,000 to bet $10, and not worth it, obviously. Because if you're betting $1,000,000 to win $10, pretty sure the IRS is the one that's going to put a circle around you. Like, how does this guy have $1,000,000 to win $10? But I was thinking, I was like, what's the result? What could beat me here? And it's literally like Cooper Flag dies before the draft somehow. Like Cooper Flag falls down the stairs and is paralyzed before the draft. Iran bombs Cooper Flag's hotel right before the draft, and I was like, I don't know if the risk is worth it. Again, we went the one I always go back to, where I considered like seriously unloading, was the Mayweather McGregor fight, where I think Mayweather was like minus 600, and I was like, okay, so what are the possibilities? And then it hit me. It was like, there's some small chance that Mayweather just throws this fight, just takes a dive, so they can turn around and make another $1 billion on the rematch. I was like, yeah, probably not worth taking the shot at. Although in retrospect, obviously, that didn't happen. And but I mean, you never know with these kind of things, and at minus 100,000 doesn't really seem like it's worth it.
Little prohibitive. You'd be more inclined to take a small shot the other way, in spite of the fact, and hope that at that point, Nico Harrison was as insane as we thought
Yeah, that's true.
when he
You could
fit
have
into
gone.
contention.
You could have gone with Dylan Harper and been like, yeah, maybe this guy really is crazy.
You didn't see the potential in Flag at the same level as most others did.
Well, again, you didn't get the relative odds either. It was like Cooper Flag was like minus 100,000 or whatever, but Dylan Harper was only like plus 2 or 3,000. Like if you give me true odds and you give me Dylan Harper plus 50,000, I
Yeah.
probably would have thrown $10 at it just on the off shot that he is in fact great. Anyway, so no, we've entered the dead zone. Like again, God bless people who can still take Major League Baseball, and I'm not going to claim that I was the biggest Major League Baseball fan to start with. I've never been a giant, but like what the sport has turned into in 2025, but this Moneyball philosophy that everybody, it's just 100% unwatchable to me. Like bunch of dudes who hit like 240 but 50 home runs, and teams that play like 6 relievers a game and they all throw 100. And so when someone just runs into a ball, it's pure luck and it leaves the ballpark. But nobody runs anymore. Nobody really hits for average anymore. It's totally unwatchable to me.
Yeah, got the All-Star game coming up, and of course, your favorite topic to be discussed, which is All-Star game snubs.
Oh God, the worst topic in the history of sports radio, and everybody for a long time did it. Like I don't know what they fill. I mean, ESPN, we know they fill it with the ESPYS,
Yeah,
which again somehow is a bottom tier awards show, and awards show are maybe the worst televisions there. Like I would legitimately rather watch the Tonys. At least maybe there's a
yeah,
song I don't know I can get into than watch the ESPYS.
yeah. At least you get a few performances there that people would
Right,
consider to be of a spectacular nature, and they
as
do it
opposed to
very
the
well.
comedy stylings of Eli Manning that are going to be headlining the ESPYS. Like I
When Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, won the Arthur Ashe Hero Award, I thought that was a bit of a stretch at that point. But what the heck? I mean, who am I to make these kind of
I
judgments?
mean, well, I mean, uh, you got to give it to somebody from the world of sports. You know, the whole thing. I'm not sure I actually ever sat through an entire ESPYS. I've seen like clips here and there, but like sit down to watch the show. Nope.
No, no, that's
But
going to engage me for several hours at a
we
time.
do have the British Open coming up in a couple of weeks, so maybe next week we'll do the British Open and do a little preview. But other than that, we're done for a couple of months in terms of handicapping stuff. And I got to be honest, for whatever this reason, I'm kind of looking forward to the vacation. Kind of looking forward to a couple months where there's just I'm not that into the sports. Catch up on some TV, go see some movies, whatever. Do some other things for a couple
Well,
months.
when you start researching your college football, and what are like the primary things
I
that?
mean, for some reason, my Phil Steele magazine, Lord Steele, is delayed this year. I was supposed to get it last week. I'm hoping I'll get it this upcoming week, and I'll start dabbling. And it'll probably be like the end of July that I'll start looking seriously at futures after the markets settle a little bit. We'll start looking at Heisman's and then win totals and things like that. So like end of July. Um, I don't know how much the NFL future. The NFL futures, the little bit I've seen at the market seems absolutely insane. But you're always going to get the nutty people. The one that seems this year, a lot of people betting big on Baker Mayfield to have a huge season in Tampa Bay, which I'm not a believer. But you know, good luck, best of luck to you. I will probably be involved in the market, but you know, we'll see. Probably, like I said, probably about a month from now.
I was listening to some radio show last night on my way home from a little Alzheimer's Cup tennis, and they were talking about Joe Burrow to lead the league in passing because Cincinnati's defense is awful. They're not going to be able to run the ball, and he was like plus 450. And did he not lead the league last year in
I don't
passing?
remember. I don't remember who led it in passing. He would be a possibility.
Yeah,
Um, 450 doesn't seem like a terrible shot to me. Again, for the reasons you just laid out, that defense doesn't really look to be improved, so he's going to have to be in shootouts pretty much every week. So I could buy that as a pretty solid theory. I mean, I'm trying to think who what I would handicap off the top. I mean, you're leading the league in passing yards. I
yeah.
mean,
I hadn't really taken that into consideration. I was thinking, well, wait a minute, where are we? We're in June, and this guy's already laying out capital at, and I believe that made him the favorite at plus 450 to lead the league in passing.
I mean,
So
I know there's some health concerns with Stroud, but he'd be another one I'd probably look at. Again, similar situation. They can't run the ball. They've got a pretty solid collection of wide receivers. Herbert, maybe another one, although they're a little bit more balanced offensively.
Josh Allen.
With Harbaugh, passing yards with and combined yards maybe with Allen, but Allen again, how talented is the wide receiver core? I'll have to look again. I know Baker Mayfield has gotten lot of love in that market, but I'll have to look at some other possibilities. Burrow seems like a pretty solid off the top of my head, pretty solid pick in that particular category.
No cinches. All right. Well, you're filling the time there while you're kind of taking a little bit of a respite from the degenerate side of things by examining other forms of entertainment. And your big board this week, sensational. As I mean, we've just had the NBA draft, but if you're drafting fictional quarterbacks, I
Well, this was all inspired
yeah,
by the fact that if you've watched any television this week, you cannot get away from the advertising for this Brad Pitt movie,
yeah,
this F1 movie, which I guess the people in Hollywood were like, we elite celebrities love this F1 stuff, and the rest of America hates it.
yeah.
And with good reason, because honestly, even I'm not a car racing enthusiast, but even if you are a car racing enthusiast, this sport is particularly terrible. Let's forget that all the races in America start at like 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning. Forget that there's not a single American involved in this sport. It's all, Europeans and European cars.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the United States of America. Let's forget that when they were in Las Vegas a couple years ago, they had to cancel the final practice run because it was like 50 degrees outside. And they're like, that's too cold for these machines. These are finely tuned machines. They can't run in the cold like that. It's 50. Like, what the? You spend $1 billion, you can't drive it when it's 50 degrees outside? Yeah, you're
You're
not
jogging
racing.
with antifreeze. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're not racing in Green Bay. You're racing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have more trouble withstanding the heat.
Right.
Boring sport. I'm with you. I don't get the fascination with it. I would much prefer the West Islip Speedway and the Demolition Derby back in the day on ESPN's Wide World of Sport. I mean, ABC's Wide World of Sports. But yeah, I don't see it. Nobody passes
Oh, I
anyone.
mean,
There's
if
no
this is going to be
strategy. Nothing.
if this is going to be a trend and they have terrible sports, I have a long list of things like Matt Damon stars in Lumberjack Games, the movie.
Yeah, no, tough stuff. All right, so
George
this
Clooney
was
stars in Battle of the Network Superstars, the movie.
this was based on the new Formula One movie. Brad Pitt getting a lot of steam, seeing a lot of posts about it. Social media, of course, infatuated with Brad Pitt. So no surprise that we're seeing a zillion different things about and shorts about this movie. But you have compiled an interesting list about fictional quarterbacks.
Right. So we went to the sport we love the most, football, and got me thinking about fictional athletes. So that is the big board this week. Let's pull it up here, which is the big board of the greatest fictional quarterbacks, the best fictional quarterbacks of all time. And obviously, there have been a lot of fictional quarterbacks portrayed, going back to, like Ronald Reagan as George Gipp and everything else. I will tell you that Gipper did not make the list. But these are my picks, some of which you will have in common as other people
Yeah.
might have some different picks. So let's go with it and
All
start
right.
with number 5, which was Dawson from Dawson's Creek when he played football that year in West Texas. Now, if you've seen this movie, which is Varsity Blues, they call him by a different name. I assume Dawson got involved in a horrible crime and went into the witness protection program or something because it was clearly Dawson. But if you've seen this movie, Dawson wins a 5A title, state title in Texas, big school Texas. I mean, not a sport that is deficient in high school football talent. And I don't think he throws a single pass all year to anybody other than Scott Kahn. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Scott Kahn, but if you've ever seen him standing next to a normal sized person, Scott Kahn is like 5'2". Scott Kahn is like half an inch shorter than Tom Cruise, and he doesn't look particularly fast.
No.
So to lead yourself to a title throwing the ball to Scott Kahn the entire season, pretty impressive feat also. But let's consider the circumstances here. Dealing with off the field distractions. He's got girls showing up to his house in whipped cream bikinis. He's got his dad being a pain in the ass to the point where he has to throw footballs at his face over and over again. And he's got his teacher who's a stripper who's hitting on him. His English teacher is stripping and flirting with Dawson the whole movie. Like, imagine being a high school kid and plowing your way through that to get to the fight. And your coach is a huge racist who won't give the ball to the black running back because he doesn't like when black people score touchdowns. Right? How that happens in 1990s football in Texas, I'm not exactly sure. I'm assuming if you have the racist coach in the state of Texas among big schools, you're losing every game 77-3.
Without a doubt.
But again, and on top of all that, if you watch the movie, Dawson invents the air raid offense. They call it the oop de oop. It's a dumb name, but it's the air raid. And this was before Mike Leach popularized it at Texas Tech. So, I mean, Dawson, on top of his play, is one of the great offensive geniuses to ever live. I mean, Maybe the single most impressive high school quarterbacking season that has ever been put to film or television. Dawson, Varsity Blues, West Canaan High School.
All right, that's number 5.
Number
Number 4.
4, slightly more obscure movie, but I think most people have seen it, which is Paul Blake in Necessary Roughness. And you're going to say, Ken, how do you make number 4? He only won one game all year long.
Right.
It's true, they did go 1-9-1 in the movie. But let's remember the context here. The win is at the end of the season over number 1 ranked Texas. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Prevented Texas from going to the national title game. And going into the last game of the season, they'd only scored 3 points all year, and it was on a field goal by Kathy Ireland. Kathy Ireland was your leading scorer on the season headed into the game, and you beat Texas over number 1. And your second best player was Sinbad, by the way, who was also a 40-year-old playing college football. And I mean, this is like 5 seconds before Sinbad completely vanished. So impressive feat when, like, your second best player was 3 months away from going into a crack house and never appearing in a movie ever again.
Disappeared completely from the entertainment scene, no question. And where is it today? Well, we would have no idea. Did he check out, Sinbad? Is he still with us?
I really have no idea.
He
I,
might
I, I hope I'm not being distasteful of Sinbad. He's passed, but like his career passed long before he did, if he did. Anyway,
yeah.
maybe the single most impressive upset. I mean, in a lot of ways, a bigger upset than Appalachian State over Michigan.
No question.
Paul Blake, engineer of maybe the greatest upset in college football history,
Some
in the
creative
movie Necessary Roughness, and did it again while dealing with Kathy Ireland showering in your locker room in the team, like, and prime Kathy Ireland. So, like, as big an off the field distraction as or locker room distraction as is humanly possible.
Amazing that they were able to focus at all, although they only did for that one game. So that's number 4, Paul Blake, Texas State University.
Oh yeah, it explains the 1-9, right? Because you're dealing with Kathy Ireland taking showers in your locker room. Like, it's hard to focus, hard to run an offense under those circumstances.
That would impact your concentration, no question. All right, number 3.
Number 3, again, kind of an off the board pick. I don't know. Again, personality issues here, so you don't necessarily think him as a great quarterback. But number 3, Stan Gable, quarterback of Adams College in Revenge of the Nerds. I want to point out when they do the big ending of this movie where the football team and the nerds are going, the coach mentioned Stan Gable is a 2-time All-American quarterback. So he's managed to be a 2-time All-American at a school. If you look at the pep rally, there's only about 24 players on the team. And the school specializes in computer science. So this would be like if the quarterback from MIT was somehow a 2-time All-American. Impressive in and of itself. But what really locks this in is that Stan Gable is a 2-time All-American. And when they have the big showdown scene when Bernie Casey and the rest of the Tri-Lambs come to rescue their nerd brothers at the end of the movie, the entire football team's scared to death of a group of 50-year-old black men who are dressed there in sweaters and ties. The whole football team, like, oh my God, it's a bunch of well-dressed black men in their 50s. We're so scared. What the hell are we going to do? Like, even this team's offensive linemen are shitting their pants because Bernie Casey and a bunch of late middle-aged black men are standing there in sweaters and ties. If that's your circumstances, the hell are you going to do when Jerome Brown is across the offensive line from you? When Warren Sapp is ready to kill your quarterback and you're scared of 55-year-old Bernie Casey. I'm just saying that's a pretty remarkable performance if that's your team and you can manage to be a 2-time All-American. So Stan Gable, obviously a very impressive fictional quarterback.
Yeah, especially since he went on to become the first mate on the Love Boat. So not exactly the path that you would normally expect.
Again, I want everybody who's watching this to go back and watch that ending scene from The Revenge of the Nerds. The entire football team is scared of a bunch of well-dressed black guys. Like, okay, if that's your situation, what the hell is your quarterback going to do when Ndamukong Suh is coming after?
That's number 3, Stan Gable at Adams College.
Number 2, Flash Gordon, the New York Jets. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the history of Flash Gordon, back when the character was created back in the 1930s, the concept was a great athlete who goes on to fight in an intergalactic war and save the universe. But back in the 30s, they did not pick a quarterback. They picked a polo player from Yale was Flash Gordon's original backstory. And I don't know about you, Defo, but if I'm picking an athlete to save the universe, just in terms of physical capability, a polo player from Yale is basically my last round draft pick. Again, I'm taking a table tennis player from Beijing University over a polo player from Yale. I'm taking a badminton player from Bombay Tech as a pick over a polo. But in 1979, when this was movie, the story was retconned so that Flash quarterback was, in the terms of the movie, the greatest New York Jets quarterback of all time. Now I realize in 2025 that's a pretty low bar. That's say, well, he's better than Mark Sanchez.
Yeah,
So
not
again, not
distinguished,
not
but
the most difficult thing.
yeah.
Like you're basically saying superior to Ryan Fitzpatrick is basically the greatest New York Jets quarterback. But this was made in 1979 when Joe Namath was still very much fresh in people's mind. So back then, it was a more impressive title than it would be in 2025. So you got that, number one. And number two, the guy goes on to beat Ming the Merciless, who, for younger people, that's basically the Thanos of the 1970s, except he was Chinese. But he was like an intergalactic dude who had rings and jewels that he shot energy. He was basically Thanos, and Flash Gordon beat him by himself. So, in terms of both on and off the field accomplishments, this is a very greatest New York Jets quarterback and savior of the universe. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat that as a fictional quarterback's resume.
No doubt. Better even than the stint that was served by Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, if you wanted to put big names on the
Right.
list.
I mean, yeah, in terms of off the field accomplishments, committing massive welfare fraud is difficult, but I'm not sure it's as impressive as defeating an intergalactic villain who's trying to conquer the universe.
All right, that's number two. What tops the list? And I have a feeling I know what it would be because this guy actually starred as a fictional quarterback in two movies.
Two different movies, and that is we had to pick one, and I actually think it's a pretty easy choice, and that is Johnny Utah, Ohio State University, Rose Bowl winning quarterback. As well, number one, let's go. Johnny Utah won the Rose Bowl against USC. Shane Falco also played a quarterback from Ohio State, but the whole movie, they keep going on about how he got his ass kicked by Florida State in the Sugar Bowl, and that's why he never went pro and had to be a scab player in the 1987 football strike.
Yes.
Because again, he got dominated. Whereas Johnny Utah actually won the Rose Bowl, but that's not the only thing that sets Johnny Utah apart. Number one, Johnny Utah was so great that a group of surfers who don't look like they've ever seen a television, much less a football game on television, in their entire lives, because they're out busy surfing and robbing banks all the time. Like, when do they have time to catch the Rose Bowl? Just instantly recognized Johnny Utah from the Rose Bowl 3 years ago when he beats Ohio State. And they're playing a midnight football game. And they go, oh, my God, that's Johnny Utah. He beat USC in the Rose Bowl 3 years ago. That alone tells you that Johnny Utah was probably a Heisman finalist, was on TV all the time. He's mentioned as all conference. So, Big Ten all conference. They never say that about Shane Falco. But again, it's the off the field accomplishments that set Johnny Utah apart, because not only was he all conference and won the Rose Bowl while Ohio State's quarterback, but then he goes on to be a lawyer. Then he goes on to join the FBI. Then he goes on to be one of the greatest surfers on the planet that he only learns in like 3 days. Like the first day they show him falling off the surfboard. Day 3, he's surfing pipeline with these surfers who are looking for the biggest wave in the world. Day 4, he becomes a world-class skydiver. So good, in fact, that he jumps out of a plane without a parachute and catches the other guy and manages to hold on to him while he releases the chute. I mean, and didn't die during all this.
No.
But not Johnny Utah's single biggest accomplishment. Johnny Utah managed to solve a series of major crimes, armed bank robberies, while Gary Busey was his partner. I can't imagine you could do a traffic stop with Gary Busey as your partner without creating a major incident, without the body cam footage being all over television. An FBI agent beats 90-year-old woman for no reason during traffic. I mean, you got Gary Busey Your partner is actively trying to create chaos, and I would say this is actually more impressive than Flash Gordon defeating Ming the Merciless to actually solve a crime while Gary Busey is your partner as an FBI agent. Probably the single most impressive off the field feat by any fictional quarterback ever. And that gives Johnny Utah our top spot as the greatest fictional quarterback of all time.
Impressive list. Yeah, definitely some creative license being taken there by the people that were putting these movies together. And yeah, I'd have to go with Johnny Utah, number one, also. All right, Professor.
Hey, suck on that, Brad Pitt. Are you going to drive a race car and solve crimes at the same time in this F1 movie? I don't think so.
Not happening. Yeah. So I imagine you're not inclined to purchase some tickets to this movie. Just wait till it comes out on cable.
I'm not even watching it on again. I'm trying to think of sports that would be worse. George Clooney in Cricket, the movie. I mean, I have some suggestions. I'm not gonna lie. As long as it wasn't Ben Affleck starring, I would go see Lumberjack Games, the movie. I used to love the Lumberjack Games at like 2 o'clock in the morning on ESPN. If they did Superstars, the movie with Michael B. Jordan as Ronaldo Nehemiah, who won the Superstars like every year back in the day, I would go see that movie. But F1 at one, no, I'm just unwanted. I can't stand an F1 race, much less a movie about F1 racing.
I don't get the fascination, whether it's kind of like pickleball to me, but
Yeah,
Jake
there
Paul,
you go. Pickleball, the movie.
yeah, the movie, yeah. Watching a bunch of old ladies playing pickleball last night. They weren't half bad, and I'm thinking this is a really stupid game. But that being said, Chavez Jr. Versus Jake Paul. Any interest in that? Jake Paul, a prohibitive favorite. I think I saw.
I mean, the same as any other Jake Paul fight. I won't bet on it, but I will watch it, hoping that Jake Paul gets beaten to death in the ring. I mean, I think that's the whole appeal of all of these Jake Paul events is we want to actively see the guy who's just going to beat the holy crap out of Jake Paul, and if he gets very badly injured in the process, all the better.
10 rounds cruiserweights on this one, which I would imagine Chavez Jr. probably that would be his biggest difficulty was
How old is he?
making
So
any weight.
mid 40s,
He's
50s.
40, I think. 40 years old,
Okay.
Chavez Jr.
I mean, so he's sort of at a competent. I mean,
He beat a few credible guys back in his career, which was largely trashed as being pumped up. But looking at his overall resume, he fought a couple of decent guys in the middleweight division or super middleweight. So not
well,
impossible.
you're a boxing guy, so let
Yeah,
me ask you the question. I think everybody wants: when are we going to see Jake Paul fight a credible fighter? Or is that ever going to
I
happen,
would
or does he
imagine
just
never.
make so much money off of these carnival fights that it's just? I mean, I, I honestly I don't like Canelo versus Jake Paul makes $1 billion. Like I'm curious.
I think, yeah, Conor McGregor, Jake Paul is the fight that would probably make the most money. But I don't even know if
Ooh,
that
boy, that would be a tough one.
tough call.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, who do you want to win that fight?
neither. Yeah, you're hoping for
Yeah.
the double TKO where they both hit each other simultaneously and go down.
I think you're rooting for an Iranian bombing. Like if Iran's going to strike back at the United States, that the Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor fight is absolutely the time to do it. I mean, and if they're doing it in Jerry World again, all the better.
Yeah,
So no, I'm curious to see when we see that evolution in the Jake Paul nonsense. If he's ever going to fight like a credible guy,
I would imagine not.
a credible boxer who's not a member of AARP.
No reason
But
to, as
I
we.
look at it like, I mean, he's making so much money off these gimmick fights. Why would he ever do that?
I think he's going to fight one of the women that he's been promoting. That will be the next thing, and I would imagine that'll be frowned upon. But yeah, at least he has that Serrano Katie Taylor thing, which has enhanced the view of women's boxing.
Well, that's the other question for a guy like yourself as a boxer. Is he a net positive or a net negative?
I mean, two ways to look at it. I mean, the matches he's involved in are a disgrace. That whole Tyson thing, I couldn't reek the fraud any more than some of those late Mayweather fights. But I mean, he has done some things that people would consider positive, including maybe making people interested in it from a generation that had written the sport off or never would have paid even an iota of attention to it before. So, and he has brought some attention to women's boxing, which I'm not sure I'm a big advocate of, but watching these two women get it on that are now in their third fight in the trilogy, I believe, on the undercard. It's been a female Gotti Ward. It really has. So,
These are the two that fought on the undercard of Tyson and
yeah,
Paul the
yeah,
last
yeah.
time.
Those
And
two.
I didn't watch the fight, but everybody I know who
Oh
did,
no, it was a well.
easily the best fight of the night was
Yeah,
what
no
I
doubt
heard.
about it. Show stealer. All right, Professor, you have a great weekend. Good luck with whatever you're betting on. And now that you're on a little bit of a hiatus, a chance to get the bankroll rolling for the football season. And we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, you have a great one, Dave.
All right, the Professor, ladies and gentlemen, so sort of out of action right now. Shut out, cut off on his Australian rules football, which we were hitting every week as a matter of routine. It was one thing we could say without any debate that we were undefeated on here on Bury Your Bookie. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy everything that you're doing. For the Professor, I'm Jeff DeForest. See you on the Monday edition of Bury Your Bookie.